young man is lying on the ground. He says he's been stabbed. He says he can't breathe. And the people standing around him don't appear to believe him. Before the discussion on politics, or before a discussion on race, and the necessary and justified outrage, there is a simpler question we can ask. What was the first duty? Because once we answer that question, everything else becomes much easier to understand. Recently, with the parents' wishes, body cam footage relating to the death of Henry Nowak entered the public domain. The footage is unbearable and difficult to watch, not because of just what it shows, but because what it doesn't. No urgency, no instinct, and no rush to preserve a life. The very things most people assume would happen automatically. Because one of the many strange things about modern Britain is that we've become obsessed with the secondary questions. What did they say? What did they mean? Was it offensive? Was it racist? Was it hateful? Were feelings hurt? Were boundaries crossed? All questions some people are desperate to answer, and yet all arrive after a much simpler one. Is somebody in danger? Because if a person is bleeding out on the pavement, the hierarchy of concerns should be obvious, right? Life first, everything else second. Or at least that's how most people instinctively understand it. Because when a firefighter arrives at a burning building, his first duty isn't to establish who started the fire. When a paramedic arrives at a car crash, their first duty isn't to determine fault. When a lifeboat crew sees someone drowning, they don't stop to investigate the character. First duty is preservation. Life first, everything else after. Simple, or at least it used to be. Because modern society spends a long time discussing harmful actions, we can analyse them endlessly. Who did what, who said what, who crossed which line, who used force, who failed procedure. What we discuss far less comfortably is harmful inaction. The things people failed to do, the moments where intervention never came, the opportunity missed, the decisions delayed, because action feels easier to judge. Inaction, however, leaves a vacuum. Yet consequences all arrive the same. The outcome doesn't care whether harm came from action or inaction. The outcome simply arrives. Most people remember George Floyd. They remember the protests, the outrage, the footage. The public debate wasn't solely framed on intent. The debate became one of causation. Did the actions of those present contribute to the outcome? Could different decisions have changed what happened? Those questions dominated discussions for years, which raised an uncomfortable point. If we accept that actions contributing to an outcome deserve scrutiny, shouldn't we also be willing to examine inaction? Not because these cases are 100% identical, although they do have similarities, but because principles should not depend upon popularity or optics. If causation matters, it should matter consistently. Watching the footage, I couldn't help but wonder if modern institutions face a larger problem than just incompetence. Fear. The fear of the accusations, of headlines, of social media outrage, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, appearing biased. And sometimes fear can become so overwhelming that it interferes with justice itself. Fear of doing the wrong thing does not remove the duty to do the right thing. Yet increasingly it feels as though many institutions and those working under them struggle to remember that. Because this issue obviously extends beyond policing. Look at modern Britain. We already have distinctions, exceptions, exemptions, different standards applied in different circumstances. In this case, a Sikh may carry a ceremonial blade as part of a religious tradition. A law-abiding citizen, though, concerned for their own safety, cannot legally carry pepper spray for protection. And of course, if someone was identifying with older European pagan traditions, would find little accommodation for carrying symbolic tools tied to their own belief. Whether those positions are right or wrong isn't the point. The point is that modern Britain already operates for a system of distinctions, yet we rarely discuss the principles beneath those distinctions. Only the outcome, only the optics, only the reaction. Throughout history, justice has always rested upon two pillars, truth and judgment. Remove one, and the structure collapses. Truth without justice becomes cruelty. Justice without truth becomes ideology. You need both. Yet increasingly it feels as though modern institutions are asked to prioritise perception over reality, narrative over evidence, optics over duty, and when that happens, people begin asking difficult questions. Perhaps the strangest thing is what happens after every one of these tragedies. We begin arguing about the objects, the knife, the law, the exemption, the policy, the procedure, the legislation, as if any of those things acted alone, as though any inanimate object ever made a decision, as if the object itself possessed intent. The knife did not choose, the hand did. The hand did not choose, the mind did. And somewhere along the way we become increasingly uncomfortable discussing that. Because objects are easier, policies are easier, institutions are easier, human beings and groups are complicated, motives are complicated, and responsibility is complicated. Yet every serious conversation eventually arrives at the same place. Not the object, not the tool, not the excuse, but the person and the people. Perhaps that's why this story has struck such a nerve. Not because it was violent. Unfortunately, there is more and more violence happening in modern Britain, taking on this very nature. Not because it was political, because politics is infecting almost everything now. It's because that most people instinctively understand that something should be obvious. A young man said he needed help, and the first question should never have been, what did he say? It should have been, can we save him? Everything else comes afterwards. The evidence, the investigation, the judgement, the courts, the politics, the headlines, all of it, afterwards. Because a society reveals its values not through what it says, but through the order in which it places its priorities. And that's the question I can't escape. If preserving life is no longer the first duty, what is?